What is it that's keeping, in your mind, the Fed from what many of us believe is the right thing to do, which is to lower some interest rates?
The reason we're not is the forecast by all professional forecasters that I know of on the outside and the Fed do expect a meaningful increase in inflation over the course of this year.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell holding the line, calling for patience on interest rate cuts despite mounting political pressure and fears over President Trump's tariffs. President Trump has slammed the Fed's approach as too late and incompetent, while demanding sharp rate reductions ahead of what could be a critical election year for his economic agenda. Meanwhile, Republicans in Congress are pushing their own economic package. Of course, that so-called one big beautiful bill. It's a massive tax, trade, and spending proposal that some economists warn could fuel inflation and complicate the Fed's path forward. Joining me now is South Dakota Republican Senator Mike Rounds, a member of the Senate Banking Committee. Senator, good morning to you, and thanks for hopping on.
Hey, good morning. Appreciate the opportunity.
Always good to have you. So Powell testified before the House yesterday. He's in the hot seat in front of you and the Senate today. What do you want to ask him that ensures new information and not just a copy paste of yesterday's hearing?
Yeah, really good point. We know what the House members had talked about yesterday. I think our efforts will be focused on regulatory reform, talking about what they're going to be doing specifically with the banks and getting some of the pressure off of them with regard to the issues surrounding reputational risk and so forth. It doesn't sound like a lot to the public necessarily, but to the banks, it's a really big deal, and it will give some continuity to what the banks are actually being regulated for. I think that's where a lot of my focus is going to be, but naturally we'll have some discussions with regard to inflation, the direction that inflation is going, the consumer price index, along with the producer price index, and the direction that they see. Look, I think Jerome Powell is actually doing a pretty good job, and I like the way that he's approached it. I think it's going to pay off. I think it's going to pay dividends for the administration long term because he clearly is an independent voice. And as our economic plans continue to develop, I think as the economy starts to really roll with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act coming into play right now that we're working on, I think as the economy starts to roll, I think what the chairman is doing is correct. And I think you will see some rate decreases along the way. But the independence, I think, is very, very important.
Let me ask you, just with you saying that you think that he's doing a good job, in that case, what are you making of Trump's name calling? I mean, every day calling him too late pal, dummy, numbskull. I mean, you know, he's tried everything in the book. What do you make of that coming from our president? And is that a smart tactic to get anybody to do what you want them to do?
Well, look, you have to remember that President Trump actually appointed Jerome Powell in the first place, and I think he did a good job. I think he picked some pretty good people. I know he's frustrated right now because he'd love to see the interest rate comes down because that reduces the amount of interest that the American taxpayer pays in terms of interest on our debt. At the same time, having the independence at the board and having the chairman standing up and just saying, look, we're going to take our time. I think as our economic policies come through and as the instability that a lot of the forecasters are seeing with regard to what we're going to be doing on tariffs, as that starts to solidify, I think you will see the rates begin to come down. But once again, they're concerned about inflation. They made a bad mistake a couple of years ago when they thought that the inflation rate was transitory. I think they're being very sensitive now, and they don't want to make that mistake again. But I think his independence is going to pay dividends for the administration long term, because once he starts to decrease those rates, I think that'll send a powerful message to our economy.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.